My name is Barbara Off from DOK.network Africa. I'm working for DOKFest for over 10 years now and created together with festival director Daniel Sponsel this Africa focus at DOKFest München. Yeah, and it was very important for us to have this focus in order to bring more filmmakers from the African continent with their stories to our festival, because we had the impression that before that it was not the case. We had a lot of European film productions, projects which were shot in Africa and talking about the continent and then being screened here. So we wanted to change the perspective at that point. I already also said it earlier. We started very small. We started in the Ethnographic Museum, the Museum Fünf Kontinente. There's actually a guest here who witnessed that, Florian Schewe. Welcome to DOK.network Africa today. With 2014, we had a discussion there. And yeah, and we managed to come to the center of the festival, to the HFF, to the film school. And I think this is also the right direction where it actually belongs. At this in the past we called it Africa Day, now we call it African Encounters. In 2014, we were discussing the question of perspective, and I think we had many discussions about that in the past years, and today it's a totally different discussion than it was at that time. And yeah, so I wanted to take today, our anniversary here at the festival, our 10 years of DOK.network Africa, as an occasion to think about these questions we were talking in the past, to honor the past. And we did that also with our films we put into the retrospective of DOKFest Munich this year, but also to dare a look into the future and how we can inspire it. And I have the great pleasure that I'm not only sitting here talking to myself. I have beautiful, wonderful guests from different countries from the African continent. And please come to stage and welcome with me the panelists. Cyrielle Raingou, Mohamed Ouma, Mandisa Zitha, and Férid Boughedir. To dance over there. Yeah, so let me shortly introduce my dear panelists. Maybe we start from there, Mohamed. Mohamed is the executive director of Documentary Africa, which is based in Nairobi. Help me out, when was it funded? It was funded 2018, yeah. It's an association promoting documentary filmmaking on the continent. They are funding films, they are providing trainings and workshops and just support documentary filmmakers on the continent. Yeah, he's originally from the Comoros and is also a film festival maker, a filmmaker as well, and a jury member. He's in our international jury this year. And just a very busy person, I think. Yeah, then please give applause to him. Thank you that you made time for us to come to Munich. We really appreciate it. And then we have Cyrielle Raingou. She's from Cameroon. She's, yeah, an emerging filmmaker. She has been a guest of DOKFest Munich already in the past. In 2018, she did a residency with us and developed her first film. She's very successful with her film, Le Spectre de Boko Haram. It premiered at the International Film Festival in Rotterdam and won the Tiger Main Competition Award. Well done. If you want to see the film, it also runs at DOKFest in the Horizonte competition. Actually, tomorrow evening will be the German premiere. Yes, and then we have Férid Boughedir from Tunisia. Unknown. He's a filmmaker. He also has a film in our festival, CAMÉRA D'AFRIQUE, which will also be shown tomorrow again. It's you are a professor at the University of Tunis. You are a film critic and historian. You are a pioneer of African cinema as well, and there are so many things to say. Director of Carthage Film Festival, very renowned film festival in Northern Africa. And we are also very happy that you took the effort to come to Munich this year. Thank you very much. And last but not least, there's Mandisa Zitha on my side, and she's the director of the Encounters South African International Documentary Film Festival, which runs in Cape Town and Johannesburg in South Africa. She has been in the media world for many years. She has been on and off at the Encounters Film Festival, and she is an ambassador for the South African film industry as well. Welcome to Munich, Mandisa. Glad you came. Yeah, so now let's get started. I already said that we want to have a look into the past, and maybe Mandisa, I just put the first question to you. The Encounters Film Festival celebrates its 25th edition this year, so you're doing this for a long time already, or the festival is promoting documentary films already for a long time. In South Africa, it's one of the very few documentary film festivals. So when you look back or the time you spent at the festival, what kind of developments did you observe, and what do you think, where did you come from and where are you now?
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks to everyone for coming to the panel. In looking back over the last 10 years, I would say that we've seen huge changes in the documentary genre, in a sense that a lot of the broadcast platforms have fallen off, and it's been a crisis, and it's also provided opportunities for filmmakers to start thinking about making more cinematic films that can be programmed at festivals. So 10 years ago, that opened a lot of doors for South African filmmakers. So we saw them move from kind of TV format documentaries into more cinematic festival-type artistic documentaries. Still with a strong focus in social justice issues, but a new generation of filmmakers has also emerged that are more concerned about personal stories, for example, stories of identity, stories about heritage and issues like bridal wealth and marriage and relationships and mental health. So those are the issues that we're seeing coming through over the years in terms of personal stories. So there's been a move away from more formulaic social justice TV formats. We also built a really good infrastructure for film in South Africa. So there is national bodies that are funded by government that are creating like base funding for a lot of filmmakers. And as a result, it's affording some entry into documentary for more people. And I suppose that is a good thing. And obviously the streaming platforms as well that have emerged have provided some opportunities, although for a specific type of documentary. I'm sure we can discuss that. And the growing, in terms of the festival landscape, the growing interest in African documentary by festivals around the world that either have a focus on African documentaries or are actively engaging in diversifying and being more inclusive in their programming as you do, and taking a keen interest in programming more African films, which has allowed more exposure for more filmmakers from the continent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mohamed, we just heard that your organization came into existence just a few years ago. It's quite new, so to say. Why did it happen, and what was the process that you said there is this need for for association like Documentary Africa, and maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yes, thanks. Good evening, everyone. I think it's a very long process because it started in 2008 at Durban Film Festival. It was like a kind of like informal meeting between South African producer Stephen Markovich, Judy Kibinje from Kenya, Femi, that you know very well from IREV, and Ali Safi from Morocco, and a couple of others. They were like thinking about what's happening with the genre, because it's always been, like we say in French, parent pauvre when it comes to the cinema on the continent. The documentary genre say they wanted to do something. They had some initial seed money from Bertha, and then they did a report, but not themselves, but they contracted nine professionals all across the continent, and they went and they interview filmmakers, film festival manager, documentary producers and all of that. The report came out at IDFA in 2014. You can, for those interested, you can go to our website, Documentary Africa. You can download the report. It's a 700 pages report, so it's quite, if you have some time to read it. And then the fund was created and based in Nairobi, because Nairobi, Judy has already established DocuBox in Nairobi, which is the East African Film Fund. So it's been running now for 10 years. And it was very convenient to be incubated at DocuBox. But then I think the need was really to trying to give some seed money for African producers, because most of the documentary that goes into the international stage, maybe Cyrielle, we can talk about it, usually it's international co-production, and sometimes the African producers, they come in without any seed money to start up that conversation. So that was the initial need, because most of those people that created the fund are producers themselves. So that was really the original idea. Can we, as a film fund, trying to give seed money for African producers so they can go and trying to make film that can travel, that can sell, etc., that can talk about the African perspectives. And then we started in 2019, and we developed different strands, granting and supporting also documentary organizations. But I think the need is there, because you can only, the need to create such platforms is there because in the last 10 years, we've witnessed the emergence of platforms. We've witnessed the emergence of festivals, of development story labs, of lots of initiatives all over the continent. Mandisa, you've been talking about encounters, but I could name Kudugu Doc in West Africa, IREP in Nigeria, DocSpox, Feeder Doc in Morocco. I mean, so many platforms all over the continent have emerged in the last 10 years. And then we have like a huge waves and waves of filmmakers, documentary filmmakers that are coming. How are we going to help all those filmmakers coming from left, right, and center from the continent? So I think we need more DOK, I think, not just one Pan-African Film Fund. We need more, actually.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, maybe also more on the national basis and not so much a Pan-African, but we can elaborate on that later.
Yeah, because that's a very complicated question that I think Férid could talk about that.
Actually, I wanted to come to Férid, yes, and because you have documented the emergence of African cinema in the 70s, so to say. And now when you listen to Mohamed and saying what happened in the past 10 years, and knowing that, as you said yesterday in your, or the day before in your screening, that the dreams of the first filmmakers, they kind of crumbled. And how do you see the future? And and seeing these Entwicklungen, developments now in the past 10 years. So would you say you are optimistic, or would you say maybe the same history repeats itself for these filmmakers as for the first ones?
Well, I guess, in fact, I was invited to speak about the past. But so my aim was to discover the future thanks to this panel and thanks to these guys here. So I was more familiar as a pioneer of the Pan-African film movement. Having seen all the films, I'm more familiar with the difficulties of making feature films, telling stories and fighting against local censorship. But I must say it was already worse for documentary, worse than for feature films, because the government tolerates sometimes that all these people who waited for 70 years after the invention of cinema, we had to wait 70 years to see an African take a camera and film the African from within. So the new government tolerated the stories, but they had the monopoly of documentary as a propaganda tool. So it was worse for documentary filmmakers because they dare show reality, and the government didn't like them to show the reality in a different way. As you saw in the film, it was impossible for them even to do a screening. Just something interesting, if you see the program that Barbara made about documentaries here, the film by Safi Faye, first woman filmmaker who made a documentary called Letter from My Village, was banned in Senegal. The film by Jean-Marie Thénault, Africa, I Will Fleece You, banned in Cameroon. So it means that there was no diffusion for the feature films and less for the documentary. So to make a documentary was even like to be, I won't say a crazy person. So if we know, you must know that usually when we speak about documentaries here in München, it means that they do not have access to theaters. People don't pay to see documentaries usually, so they have other diffusion. So you see them on Arte or see them, and for African it's worse because there is no place to see them and there was no freedom in their countries. So that's why I was very eager to hear what now exists as term of platform to help producers to do documentaries and especially to distribute them so people will see them. So to answer your question, of course I'm optimistic because when you have, we'll talk later about what it is to make a documentary in Africa, what is your position, your moral position or your ethic position, but this will never stop. I mean, there is always youngsters who will come and say, I have my point of view of reality. It is not the official one. It's not the propaganda one. But also, I don't want to be like them, to make the reverse of propaganda, make my own ideologic propaganda. It happened also in African cinema that the film is not an art film. It's just the response to censorship. But I'm optimistic because as the film you saw today, art come back and has a vital need to express. And even without penniless production, we are always surprised to see a young guy coming with tremendous film made with no money and with a vision. So I am optimistic, of course.
Very good. Maybe Cyrielle, would you say you're just starting your career right now and you were already very successful, and would you say it was crazy, as Férid just said, that to do a documentary, and yeah, what is your stand? What do you expect? And because you are the future, kind of, and you are the filmmaker, what is your position on this?
And thank you for inviting me here, Barbara. Thank you for all of you being there and staying to share this moment with us. So I will start by saying today, doing film, making films in general in Africa is a journey. It's still very complicated, and I will talk for the perspective of today to see how we can reflect about tomorrow. We are still depending on international fundings. I will talk about Cameroon, and I'm quite pretty sure that more than 50% of African filmmakers still depend on international fundings. And sometimes it can also influence the way we are perceiving our reality. And we can have at the end the result that might be slightly different, or the result that sometimes can lock the filmmaker into a jar, into a box that is becoming more and more difficult to get out from it. Like most of the time, we have, or the others have, expectation from us to always being political filmmakers, like having a very strong motive and some objective to defend. And from my perspective, I love the art of filmmaking. I would just like to be willing to do a film to seize a moment, a reality, or from what I am feeling. And I guess it was, for my debut, it was quite challenging because it was in an international production, co-productions, and I had most of the time to explain to my producers the kind of reality I wanted to depict, even though that space we were already having a kind of appealing for international audience topic, but I went around to show something that was linked more to the connection I had with that space and people I grew up loving and learning to love. And so about the projection for the future, I will say I truly believe that the young generations today in Africa, the young African generation is very vibrant. Like we are looking for some fresh way of telling stories, and I still have the hope that more and more, because like today you have from Central Africa, West Africa, Senegal, Burkina Faso, we have like or Guinea, Guinea Conakry with Suleiman Diallo, who just did Le Cimetière de la Pellicule. So, and you have from West Africa, Samseko, who did East Africa, Kenya, Softy, or Far From Home. Yes, so you have more and more this generation with strong way of perceiving the reality in Africa that can be challenging, but at the same time vibrant, and I just love that. And for the future, yeah, we still need to, documentary filmmaking is a cinema. That means it's also money-wise, economical business. At the end, when you start with the development, the production, I still have the feeling that it stops in Africa with the end of the film, the production, when the production is completed. And we are still finding a new or strong way of distribution and selling our art to be able to live from it. Yeah.
So distribution is a big topic, right? Yes. To bring the films to the people. I think we talked about this yesterday also, in how to reach your audiences actually, and Maybe Mohamed, you want to repeat
Yes.
it in this
Yeah, I think
forum?
Cyrielle touched on a very important point. I think it's not only on the African continent, but I think it's for the global documentary scene. So, but for us, it's even more crucial because our films are seen in Munich or Rotterdam for her, but how many cities have screened a Cyrielle's film in Cameroon? You know, so that's problematic. I make films in the Comoros, and then I try to make sure that my premiere is in the Comoros, and I tour the islands, but it's from my pocket. So, and my co-producers, they don't really care if I do that in my country. So we still have this huge problem where, of course, I was sitting on a panel in Nairobi 2 weeks ago, and we discussed the same topic about how can we monetize our work is from your own audiences and national audiences. There's no continent where filmmakers, I don't see a German filmmakers that can say, I'm gonna start monetizing my film in South Africa. You know, it's never gonna happen. So basically we are going to, I think the challenge for the next 20, 30 years is to have people that can be able to take Cyrielle's film and manage to distribute it nationally or regionally, and then, but we're still lacking those women and men. We can be sales agents, promoters, distributors, independent distributors, and stuff. Because right now the distribution landscape on the continent is still owned by corporations that are not mainly Africans. You know, even if Canal Plus is setting up like cinemas in West Africa. Canal Plus is not an African company, you know, and then their policy is not for them. It's not for them to promote African cinema, and etc. So we're still lacking in that, and it's gonna take quite a while to get to that stage. So I'm optimistic, but to build audiences, we're gonna need like new filmmakers like Cyrielle to keep making films. And it's quite, we have to be optimistic, but we also have to be realistic in the sense that for her in Cameroon, there's no seed money. For Pascal in Central African Republic, there's no seed money, etc., etc. So we still have like big regions on the continent where the filmmakers don't have national seed money. And then they will have to go straight to the international stage, and it's very complicated, like Cyrielle said. And then when the film is finished, it's the festival round only. So there's no way you can live up from the festival round. So we have to be really realistic about that. We need to get the TV back. How? I don't know. I don't have the solutions, but we need to get the national TV back in the game. We need to get international distributors in the game and sales agents, and all, because we can't rely on European audiences or on Western audiences to build our industry. There's no industry in the world that was built with foreign audiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he's right. In fact, you must know that African cinema exists because it's cinema that have no internal market, exists thanks to a wonderful gang, a wonderful mafia, which is called, you. It means it exists thanks to the festivals and also to this wonderful religion, what created, in French is cinéphilia, what does it say, film buff? Yes, film buff. Why is it wonderful? Because this religion, film lovers, art film lovers, is a very democratic religion. It means when you are a film buff in the world or in a festival like Munich, you sincerely believe that any time, any day, from the smallest village of Burkina Faso could emerge a filmmaker who's the equal of Kurosawa or Japan. And film buffs sincerely believe that. Thanks to this faith, our films are shown in festivals, supported by critics, and financed. If the film you saw today Of course, it's not financed by Sudan. Did you see the credits at the end? Yes. Nothing from Sudan. It's Mother France was here, like usual. Thanks to Mother France, who invented cinephilia, by the way. So they invented this wonderful religion. And the funny thing is, we always have to fight against internal censorship. And it's very important. I was talking with Cyrielle, that she said, but since we are financed mainly by cinephilia, by all this mafia, sometimes we have also to oppose the prejudice and the cliché of this cinephilia, mafia, when they think about Africa. I mean, they have also the kind of film they would wish her as a woman to do. For example, when she presented a script, he said, "Oh, interesting, but I don't see the horror of Islam oppressing women here. Yeah, it's a problem. You're too indulgent with Islam. Could you add a scene?" You see? Or nothing about immigration. In Europe, we are very concerned by immigration. Are you sure you want to talk about your family and your village? It's not interesting. Please add one scene. So you have also to confront your friends. Tell them, I know you love us, but please love us as we are, not as you wish us to be.
Yes, very good comment. Maybe we also want to include the audience. So are there already some questions? My colleague here, Lily, she has a microphone.
Sorry, I wanted to ask something. This is important. Sometimes the film, this film, for example, after it was impossible to shoot it in his country, but sometimes some government are very proud that the film won awards in München or in Berlin, and then, oh, where is this guy? Come. So you want something in Cannes? Yes, of course. Let's say that thanks to our Ministry of Culture, who didn't dare help you at any time, you are here now. So, it's very funny parcours du combattant between the cactus. And she's a brave girl to do that.
You are right.
Good on you.
You will see at the end credit, I put the Ministry of Art and Culture of my country. They did nothing.
You are very clever, very clever. Willy, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you to be there. I have a question because you talk about the censorship and everything. So can you give us, or maybe a map of political situation in the countries in Africa and their relation to the cinema? So you can say maybe in this country it's easier, or it's not, or do you see some country it will be maybe easier to produce film or to make film, or is it all the same? Because I think it's different. And this is the first question. The second connected question is, do you think there is a way to have a conversation with the politics in the African continent, and or not? Or do you think there is another strategy, maybe an economic strategy? I don't know. So do you have some ideas or?
Yeah, so the first question, I think we've been active for 3 years and a half. We receive around 800 projects per year. In terms of statistics, it's almost gender parity, because 54% are from male directors and 46% from female directors. And we also, when we analyze those projects, we realize that we still colonize, so to speak, because we can see that North Africa The projects coming from Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, very influenced by the French way of making documentaries and stuff. You can see that the projects coming from English-speaking countries, it's very like American or Anglo-Saxon way of doing that. And the countries where Portuguese, it's very like, it can go any kind of way. So it's very funny to witness that. But also, we can also say that there are countries where it seems like there's like a kind of a robust, not so robust, but there's like some really solid element for filmmakers and producers to start making films. I would say, for example, and it's paradoxical because there's not that many documentaries coming out, but Tunisia, Morocco, for example, they have national film funds. So for producers, you'd think it could be easier, but the production is not that great. And you can see countries. We just saw a film from Sudan where the political situation is a nightmare for filmmakers. We just granted a Sudanese project, and the two filmmakers, I was talking to Florian earlier, we haven't got news since last Wednesday, and the producers now had to leave to go to Cairo. But there's like a huge surge to tell stories from Sudan and North Sudan, South Sudan, for example. You can see like there are countries emerging like Cabo Verde, for example, with a new generation of filmmakers that were in exile. They're coming, there are around dozens of them. Half of them are into documentary. So basically, you still have like countries where it's really touchy to do documentary, like Férid said. For example, in Uganda, or even in Kenya, where we live, there was this documentary called I'm Samuel about this couple, there's two young men who live together, and Samuel, one of the protagonists, doesn't live in Kenya anymore. And in Uganda, they are like touchy subjects, for example, because Museveni is one of the worst dictators right now still living. He's been in power for 36 years. Nobody, realize how long is that. So you have countries where really documentary filmmakers. I mean, I've got a friend, Moses. He did a film called Ghetto President. It's about Bobby Wine, and Bobby Wine was the political opponent of during the last election of Museveni in 2021. And Moses, they had to exfiltrate Moses from Kampala. So as we speak, so you have countries, just to answer your question, that it's still very difficult for documentary filmmakers. The situation hasn't changed since when Férid started. You still have those kind of situations. So sometimes we get email that we're trying to alert international news or colleagues or platforms to do something about them. But also in terms of the decision makers, the politicians, what's happening on the continent, we have a very vibrant civil society. I'm not even talking about film. I'm talking about the whole economics, the health, sports, industry, creative industries. We have a very vibrant civil society on the continent. So this continent, for me, is run by the civil societies. So we have like unknown heroes in Tunisia, in Cameroon, in Comoros, in South Africa. They are the one making that the continent is still moving forward. But we've reached a point where most of our political or decision makers, I can say that their level is very low, and I want to be polite here, because we don't really have political leaders. I just give you a straight example. I'm from the Comoros. One day I said, okay, enough is enough. I brought all the artists there. We brought government there. We brought entrepreneurs there. And we did like a kind of a business plan and say, if you invest in culture, not just in cinema for me, but in theater, in music, you're going to have rewards. There's only one person who came back to us. But we already knew him because when you have a project, he's already sponsoring us. So just to say that we don't have the decision makers that understand that the creative industry can create jobs. You have few exceptions, but we also don't have like the private sector that investing in the creative industry. because they are busy making money with cell phones, bad food, etc., etc. So we are lacking on those. When you talk to a private investor on the continent, even in Kenya, like, okay, am I going to invest in creative industry? No, cell phones, are making quick money. So we're still having, I'm not saying in all those continents, and then you have a problem of market. I mean, my perspective on that is film, like to consume film, you need to have middle classes. You do have countries that have middle class, like Mandisa's country or Férid or in Kenya, but the middle class, we haven't even started an industry that the middle class has been taken by the streamers.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's true.
that's also another problem, because we're starting an industry and then the streamers are here and they're taking the $9 or $8 from the middle class in Nairobi or in Kenya, in South Africa, in Nigeria or in Tunisia. So this is in a short, the landscape where we are.
Yeah.
I want to add something like positive, something positive. The good example we have like two good examples today in terms of collaboration with civil society, government, public service, and the artists. You have the Nigerian. Now you are having in Nigeria more and more private investor betting on filmmakers, and they have locally, they have a market. So most of the time they consume locally, and that kind of help young artists or artists with a very strong cinematic story to live from it. And you have the second example from the Francophone side in Senegal. We were talking earlier about Senegal. Now the state just put in place some fundings with in collaboration with Sensei and also ACP culture, where you can have banners, and they just funded like this film that is going to be in competition in Cannes, Adama Bine. Yes, so you have like, and more, I wish that my country can copy from Senegal, because they have like 5 to 10 projects that they are following with not only Senegalese but young filmmakers in the continent, where they are going to follow and fund. So yeah.
Thank you.
I can add something. Yes, just to finish.
Férid, can you hand it to Mandisa,
very quickly. Yes, you do have like Pan-African film that started, and also on a very positive note, cinema is magical. So audiences, if you go to Addis in Ethiopia, you see huge queues, or in small cities in Ethiopia, they're watching bad Ethiopian films, but love it. So people everywhere in the world, when they see the image reflected on the screen, they will go. So that's the magic of cinema as well. So that's where we're very optimistic about that.
That's very true. People want to see local content and they want to see themselves on the screen. So we also see a lot more support for local films on our festival. And just to add to the issue of civil society, I totally agree. In South Africa, you see more and more filmmakers making films in collaboration with NGOs and universities, and it's created like just another stream for people to get financing for films around specific focus areas like like mental health or food security or climate change, and it also provides like another distribution avenue, because then the NGOs pick up the films and they distribute them to their own communities or to academia. It's not necessarily like artistic films that can travel to festivals, but it is creating another stream for films to get around and to be made around specific focus areas. So I think that's something a little bit more positive as well.
There's another question in the...
Just to give a complete answer to the gentleman here, terms of countries. So it's easier in Africa to make art films or documentary film. It's easier if you were colonized by France. Because France, even on the economic level,
that's your
for
thesis.
example, in Morocco, we have a girl here from the school of Marrakesh. In Morocco, they also copy on the economic level the way of financing art film like France do. You know, France is the country of Europe who is resisting the more to Hollywood and who's taking money from the receipt of Hollywood films to finance national cinema. And if you compare to Germany, 90%, sometimes 95% of the theaters are with American films, Hollywood films. In France, it's 60%, so they succeed of keeping. In Morocco, they did like France, allow that some of the income of the TV advertisement go to finance national films. Even when you pay, you know, the electricity bill, on the bill there is money going back to finance national films. So this is the French model. Not only because they told us that cinema is an art,
we have only 2 more minutes.
We had Ministry of Cultures, you know? So it was easier, no, it's to shorten.
Yeah, shorten.
Short
and sweet.
If you have France as a model, it's easier.
Thank you. Now, Marc-André, please.
Well, yeah, quick question, because Mohamed, you touched it briefly, talking about the streaming industry, and it did good, it did bad for the fictional industry. What's your opinion, or what's your take on coming from the documentary scene? Is it good or is it bad?
It's destroying a very fragile industry, because we haven't finished what Férid and started like 30, 40 years ago, which is great to set up like our own perspective and voices. Now we have new generation of filmmakers, we need a new generation of creative producers, we need new generation of promoters, and then they just came in and we've talked to them. They are just looking for consumers. And they're giving like 20K, 40K, 50K to African producers who think it's great, but they lock them up for 25, 30 years. And when it comes to documentary policy from them, it's crime series and celebrity series. So they're basically killing foundations that we are passionately trying to build and having an African perspective. So I'm really pissed off with them, because even the people they hire, they don't even know Férid. And they're like, oh, I'm ahead of African cinema for Netflix or Amazon. I say, how can you come on this continent thinking nothing happened? I mean, our cinema is 100 years old, you know, and this is like another sort of colonialism and predation that we have on the health part, and it's going there as well. And it's very damaging on the long term for the industry, because we also had African platforms, Euroko TV, etc., they were trying to come in. So it's very difficult, and even for us to talk to producers and tell them, you know, you're gonna make a quick buck, you know, with this film, but on the long term, it's going to be difficult for you, because they're here for consumers. Once the consumer will go, they will go to Latin America, or they will go somewhere, or they will turn off their streaming platforms and create something else. You know, and we go back to square one again.
Okay, there's one last question, maybe. Ulla.
I just think about, I have been in Lagos years ago, and the first or second festival when Marc was there, and they had a discussion, and I remember a lady, she was a producer for documentaries, and she told for the distribution that she get in contact with the so-called Greyhound buses, where they had the possibility to screen the films during the long trips through the country. And I don't remember if she told only for commercial things or real documentaries. Do you remember this, Marc? This was such a big idea, but I think it's 8 years ago when I was there. And I never heard somebody else to talk about this kind of distribution with perhaps serious or small documentaries, this possibility with these companies. Did you heard about it? It's so strange for you, but I have this in my mind.
Do you know? Yeah, Cyrielle.
It's gone. Like I will talk in Cameroon. It was like maybe 10 or 7 years ago. There was a screening film on the buses between Yaoundé, Douala, or Yaoundé West, or for long distance. So they had it, but it was during the CD, DVD period, and then it just. It definitely.
So it doesn't succeed.
Okay. It didn't. Yeah, I wanted to say something, but I forgot.
Thank you. I think we kind of have to wrap up here now because there is a film at 9 o'clock coming, but I wish we could continue the conversation. Maybe just one quick last round. Mandisa, the festival, from the festival side, what should we do for the next 10 years? What and what could be, I mean, we have been collaborating, and so sometimes I'm thinking, so what's next? What should be the vision also for intercontinental collaborations? I mean, we try to tear down all these stereotypes, and we also succeeded. So what's next?
I think from a festival perspective, it's actually the focus is more on intracontinental collaborations within the region to create more of a circulation of African films amongst ourselves and our organizations and our countries, despite the many challenges and barriers of language and access and lack of independent exhibition spaces. So I think we have to be intentional about that, because the problem is not the films getting to the rest of the world. The problem is the films getting to our communities and our audiences. So I think that's going to be the focus, and we as festivals also have to be more intentional about how we program African films and the kind of perspective that we show our audiences, as Cyrielle mentioned, because there's so many influences to our narratives. So we have to sort of set the standard and the bar as to how we want to be perceived as artists. And I think the biggest one is film literacy, which Farrell speaks a lot about, which is to empower a young generation of audiences with knowledge and access to African cinema, history, and legacies. So I think that's going to be the big mission.
So just to remind you, as Barbara said, if you want to know more about African cinema, last chance is tomorrow at 5:30 to see CAMÉRA d'Afrique at 5:30. And of course, it will be question and answers, and then you have questions to prepare from now.
Yes, okay.
Something very brief. For the future, I would like us to challenge the narrative we have now in Africa from the artist perspective and also from the producer, the financier. We definitely need to challenge the narrative. And also in terms of distribution, this is the wish. I don't know how we can do that, but today the market in Africa is we have a huge invasion from the outside world, like from the North America, the Latin America with telenovelas, and now you even have telenovelas from Turkish, yes, India. So that is just what my mom is consuming every day. I'm visiting. I was like, why? Where is Africa? So she's going for Channel 1 love story in Latin America, Channel 2 love story in Turkish, Channel 3 love story in India. That's in Brazil. Yeah, that's I would love, like in 5-10 years, that we could even have love story. I'm not against love story, but with people from Africa. That is a market, a huge market, yes. Because we are paying that for that content, or that we are paying to watch people from outside. We will love to have that market for us. So, yeah.
Thank you, Cyrielle.
I think the future is bright. I'm very optimistic because there's a new generation coming up. I think the challenge will probably be how can we connect ourselves within the continent, like Mandisa said. This is a very, very important challenge. We have to go past the colonial barriers and languages, because we exchange in languages that are not our languages. And we have to, I think this is the challenge, not even just for cinema, but for the whole continent in different fields. So we have to know each other better so we can work better. So I think it's happening slowly. For example, she said in West Africa, lots of young producers or not so young are working together, making films, getting money from Burkina to Ivory Coast to Senegal, or from Tunisia, Morocco. So I think the dream that Férid and his peers had like 30, 40 years ago is now possible, because we do have the platforms and the things to make it happen. So I'm very optimistic.
That's very nice. Thank you for this closing statement. Thank you very much. And it just reminds me of Claire Diaw's essay, which she was writing in the magazine, and she was quoting some Ben Usman with "I myself am the sun," and I think this really fits to what you just said. Thank you very much for coming. It was a very insightful discussion. If you want to continue the conversation, we are heading to Comité Bar, and maybe you want to join us, or you want to have a chat outside in the foyer. Really, your last question. Please, outside, because, no, outside, because we have to leave the cinema now. Thank you very much.